Porsche Carrera Cup North America on a road circuit in the sunshine. Something quite correct about that as far as sports car racing is concerned, and it's one of the biggest sports car weekends in North America. The Salem 6 Hours of the Glen has terrific history, and Porsche have been a part of it for many years. Road racing and motor racing, well, that runs deep in the history of upstate New York and the Finger Lakes area. This 3.4-mile circuit with 11 corners built to take racing off the public roads around this area, but it reflects the character of those public roads. Fantastic array of corners and challenges for the engineers and of course the drivers. Passing areas, action down at turn 1, the inner loop always great, and also heading over the brow to the heel of the boot. Hello everybody, it's John Hindhaugh and Shea Adam is with me. We'll hear from Shea in a few moments time. This is the second race of the weekend. Let's remind you what happened in race 1. Yesterday, getting underway with the flat sixes howling down to turn 1. Will Martin from the UK taking the lead with a bold manoeuvre down at the first corner and heading up through the S's. Pedersen and Kvarme having a little bit of a get-together that left them both spinning, and everyone else having to avoid them. Baranchotsky had a spin in turn number 10 when he was going side by side. Just ran out of road, and the red, white and black car did get back onto the track. At the front of the field, the leader robbed of a victory, surely, as Will Martin had an issue with the right front of the car, left front of the car, excuse me, and ceded the lead to the number 20 of Jason Hart. In Pro-Am, Jeff Mosing overtook Efren Castro to take the front position of that category. Jason getting the overall win as he went across the line. It was Jeff Mosing ahead of Castro for the Pro-Am victory, and John Getz had a big lead, chased down by Scott Noble, but he hung on for the victory. Coming to the line, it was about 3 cars lengths. That was yesterday. We reset for today, Shea Adam, and we were wondering what was going to happen with regard to the second grid, because there was some really tough qualifying going on for the second best time for the drivers, and it's come out with Will Martin and Riley Dickinson on the front row.
Rinse and repeat. It's a new opportunity for Will Martin to come into today's race, and he starts ahead of Riley Dickinson in second. Yesterday's winner, Jason Hart, is third, and the guy who sits second in the championship, Tom Sargent, rolls off fourth. In fifth is Alex Sedgwick. For Pro-Am, let's move back a little bit. We have Efren Castro starting ahead of his rival for today's race, Jeff Mosing, yesterday's race winner in P2, and then Alan Metney and Moise Uretsky with PJ Hyatt right behind them.
In the AM category, it is Scott Noble on pole position. Mark Kvarme had all of his qualifying time scrubbed because he was too low. Well, he wasn't, the car was. However, the regulations here in Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup North America do state that the second race can be set from your second best qualifying time or from your best race time in race 1. Well, as Mark had no qualifying times, his lap time from the race yesterday, even though it didn't finish exactly the way he wanted to, was good enough for second position. John Getz and Grady Willingham make up the top 4. Decent starting lineup as they come round. Slightly threatening clouds, but sunshine at the moment here at the Glen. 40 minutes, very slow, almost walking pace before Will Martin hits the loud pedal, and we're racing at Watkins Glen. All kinds of people out of position behind. That could carry some penalties. Big block thrown down the outside. Goes Riley Dickinson. He's pushed off a bit of hip and shoulder there. Will Martin's I think he's going to get a penalty here for overly aggressive defending going down into turn 1. I'm not sure that race control will like his pace coming up to the line either. He's come from the UK. He's used to defending. You can't make a manoeuvre here in in response to somebody challenging you, and that's exactly what Riley Dickinson did. Went one way, then the other, and I think that was right on the ragged edge there for our leader.
For car number 74, Jimmy Liebert, very early out of line, well before the start-finish line. Race control will take a look at the start and examine who else was out of line, because I saw back in our AM battle, Scott Noble and Mark Fame were split by John Getz, so he was also out of his column before we got to that start-finish line. A lot for race control to try and take a look at. It is Will Martin leading the way, and now a little bit further back, Jason Hart still running in the 4th position, has Alex Sedgwick all over his rear bumper. This is going to be a doozy. Sedgwick now side by side, actually, with Sean Varwig.
So the leader at the moment, the pole sitter, Will Martin, taking it to the rest of this field, side by side, further back down the field. Alex Sedgwick, another Brit, and Sean Varwig.
And Varwig's gone through.
Varwig goes through in that number 2 car, the Kelly Moss machine, the lighter of the two.
Oh.
Way over the exit curb of turn 10. They're all going to get track limits for that one. That was about the first 15 cars.
Yeah. Guys, did you forget where the track goes?
Yes. You do get an advantage there, taking more speed through turn number 10. Race control will be looking at that. What a noise as the cars scream through underneath us to go down into turn 1. 35 4-litre flat 6 normally aspirated cars with just over 500 horsepower each. That's a lot of cylinders, a lot of horsepower, and a lot of noise.
Called an orchestra.
It is absolutely music to my ears. Side by side again. This time it is the number 13 of Varun Chotsky, who is battling with Speedy Dan Clark, 64 in the highlighter yellow and green and white car.
Dan Clark, who started off the weekend in the worst possible way by missing most of the first practice with a mechanical issue. Well, yesterday he made up for it quite a bit, finished 5th in the first race, and he looks to be very quick again today. That car, you can't miss it out on the track with the bright green wheels, the yellow flash of highlighter across the middle of the hood, and then the white on the rest of the body. It's very much the NOLA Sport colors, and appropriate considering that's the team he drives for.
Absolutely correct. Great to see Dan back in a full season entry. We're hearing from race control the start is under review. That is standard operational practice. I think they've got a bit to look at. There was at least 2 or 3 rows that were, I reckon, 3 wide by the time they got to the line, and you are not supposed to do that.
We had 34 cars start. I'm pretty sure they're going to be looking at 30 of them to make sure that they went the right way across the start-finish line, as PJ Hyatt is the only one of our cars who did not take the green flag. He's off with Rexy duties right now, John. I think that's what the holdup was for PJ. Man who drove a Porsche at Le Mans just a couple of weeks ago. His lap number 2 is complete, and still Will Martin leading the way, pulling out a significant advantage over Riley Dickinson, and then Jason Hart in 3rd with Tom Sargent still in 4th. Who is leading in Pro-Am? It's Efren Castro once again, but Jeff Mosing has caught up to him, and 4/10 separate the 2 of those drivers. Now, John, we're so used to them being together, whether it's in the championship or on the racetrack. Yesterday, you called him Jeff Castro, and he joked to me, I might actually have to change my name because it seems like we're always tethered together. Why not make it official?
Efren Mosing and Jeff Castro.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Create their unity.
Yes, 35 minutes still to go. We've had 5 minutes, still side-by-side action, and that is Efren Castro in the number 65 car, the dark red and silver machine, who is battling for that Pro-Am lead. That was Thomas Neveu, I think he's just gone through.
I think so.
In the McElrea racing car, so that wasn't a pass for class position, but it was a class for 15th.
Oh, and there goes Mosing, and who's that? Sabra Cook following him through, and that will be a position for Thomas Neveu if Sabra can get through on him.
24 car with the green front is Thomas. Sabra coming round the outside in the deluxe Porsche, the Kelly Moss racing car.
Stay there, you can make it work.
Now got to tough it out down towards turn 8. Sabra's got halfway ahead. Should be able to get on the brake pedal a tiny bit later. Roll off the brakes in the middle. That's a beautiful manoeuvre. Not even a hint of a locked wheel. These cars do run ABS. The only Carrera Cup in the world that does so. That was an option box that was ticked by Porsche Motorsport North America. And talking to the man at the head of that, Troy Bunny, and asking them why that was the case, It's because this is a learning experience, and many of the young pro drivers that we have here, and by the way, there are 20 full pro cars, 20 full pro cars in a 34/35 car field. Many of these young pros will be heading on to GT4 and GT3 machinery, and they all have ABS. So this is part of the learning process, courtesy of Porsche Motorsport.
Learning out on the track, Mark Vame has gone to the lead of the AM category, but John Getz, yesterday's race winner, sticking with him. They are separated by less than a second, and then 4/10 behind Getz is Scott Noble, who qualified on pole for both of the races this weekend. Scott's been in fine form lately.
Yeah, and he raced very well yesterday. John Getz had a big lead at one stage, getting up towards 10 seconds, and that evaporated. We suspect he was off the circuit for a little bit, but don't take anything away from Scott, because he was pushing very, very hard indeed. Now, battles for second place. Riley Dickinson and Jason Hart. These two were at it yesterday, but it was for the lead. Will Martin is 1.4 seconds up the road. Now, Riley Dickinson had a cracking start to the season. He was pretty much unbeatable.
5 for 6.
And that has given him a, relatively speaking, commanding lead in the championship. What
About
he
50
knows,
points. Yeah, not too shabby.
not too shabby.
When you consider that fifth on down only have about 50 points.
Correct. So he knows that he doesn't have to keep winning races now. He's got the season, he's got the points on the board. That, you know, we talk about that in stick and ball sports, don't we? Good first and second quarter in football, you get the points on the board.
Sorry to all the Atlanta people here, but so did the Falcons when they were playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and that wound up being 27-3 at the half and a very different score at the end of the day.
Well, all you've got to do is not get beaten in the next two quarters.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is exactly where we are at this stage in the season. This is round number 8. We have 16 races total.
Yep.
So at the end of today, at the checkered flag in 32 minutes and 13 seconds, we're going to be halfway through the season, which means that somebody else would have to come through and win 5 races.
And that's a tough ask in a championship and in a field that is so competitive and so close. All right, get your bingo card out. We thought we saw a few cars going through.
This is the first of our start penalties, though, John, because I think there will be more.
So Jimmy Libra for MTK Motorsports in the 74.
72 of Philip Martian. And 57 of John Getz.
Ooh.
Lining up on the wrong side. So they had a false start because they were in the wrong position to begin with.
Correct.
That means that they get a 10-second post-race penalty. So 10 seconds added to their race time no matter where they finish on the track.
Please write this down at home. 74, 72, 57 plus 10 seconds.
But I saw lane changing.
Yeah.
That would be an additional penalty from race control should they choose to explore that option.
We'll keep an eye and wait to see what comes in. That's the first tranche of penalties. Battle for second place coming down to turn 10 now.
I wonder how often Riley has actually used his rearview mirror this season. Probably not very much.
I tend to think he's a very considered young man. Just 21 years old.
Correct.
Or was he just turned 22? Just turned 22 in May, didn't he?
He did. Let me find his page.
Half an hour to go. Already has 4
May
seasons.
11th, 2002. So we just turned 21
All right.
after the race in Miami.
Right.
So yesterday would have been his first time spraying champagne on the podium for Porsche
right.
Deluxe Carrera Cup North America.
Absolutely right. Already, though, he has had 4 seasons of experience at this level of racing.
Thomas Naveau is in the pit lane. His car was falling backwards. He was first passed by Efren Castro, then passed by Jeff Mosing, and then Saber Cook. So clearly something wrong with his machine.
Jeff Mosing's just put the fastest lap in for Pro-Am in the number 56 car, 16th overall, second in class. And for the sake of probity, I will tell you that Mark Kwame has worked his way to the front of the AM field with John Getz just a 1/10 of a second behind him, and 2/10 behind that is Scott Noble. So that's a cracking battle going on.
1:10.
43, 57 and 10. And they are nose to tail for that AM battle. Mark Kwame coming back from having all of his times cancelled from qualifying.
that means that John Getz has reeled in almost a second on Mark Kwame within the last lap, even though John Getz, well, I don't know if Johnny Wright's boys and girls would have told him over the radio yet that John Getz has a 10-second post-race penalty, but he needs to pass Kwame and check out in order to try and keep a win here today.
Tough ask.
Very tough.
That would be. John's been having a good weekend, though. This probably one of two of his closest racetracks. Lime Rock Park and here lives pretty much equidistant between them. Leaders across the line: Will Martin, JDX, Riley Dickinson, championship leader, Kelly Moss, Jason Hart, winner yesterday for MDK, then Tom Sargent's for McElrea Racing. What a great weekend it's been, and what a great season it's been for them. Battle for the Pro-Am lead. Efren Castro and Jeff Mosey are tied together with a relatively short bungee cord as they go through turn one. Efren in the red and black car, Jeff in the yellow and dark red coloured car, the rhubarb and custard car as we like to call it. Jeff doesn't mind that, does he?
I don't think so.
No, he's fine. He would have told me.
I'll check in with him later on.
I'm big enough and ugly enough to find in the paddock, so I'm sure he would have said something about it.
These two guys battling, it makes me giggle every time because they have such good camaraderie off the track, and they're so happy to be here racing Porsches that for them the peak is getting to just battle each other back and forth for the lead. Hey, I'm going to pass you here like this. Oh, I'm going to try that next time. Yeah, I tried that last time, it didn't work. It's wonderful.
Blue and red car, Efren Castro, slightly revised livery for this season. Oh, now somebody has dropped a Michelin tyre into the dirt coming out of turn 6 ahead of this battle. So who might that have been? Ryan Yardley, Travis Wiley, De La Torre, maybe. Still waiting to see if there's anything more from the start line penalties. It looks as though not. So I wonder if that changing lane then was lining up on the wrong side. Maybe that's been how it's been assessed. If you were actually on the wrong side of the track, that was a changed lane, you would not be in your correct starting position, would you?
Could be.
So those three cars that we mentioned earlier on will get a 10-second penalty after the race. So if you're following along live here, and we're live and free across the world, here in the US and globally, all action, all excitement, no charge for all of the IMSA Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup North America once again this season.
The biggest question I have right now, John, is what is going through Will Martin's head? Because he's currently 2 seconds ahead of Riley Dickinson. Yesterday, he had a very good lead, and then he didn't, and he wound up in the pit lane. So, is he thinking about that at all? Or is he completely focused forward?
Got to think he's taking it very easily on the curbs, Shay.
Yeah.
So he doesn't do any damage. We never really got to the bottom of what had happened there. Couldn't decide if he clipped the back of another car or maybe just dropped the left-hand front Michelin tyre over the edge of one of the curbs and it had done damage on the way back. So another great battle. Here's the AM battle that we were talking about a moment or two ago. Mark Kwame had pulled out to 7/10 of a second, but John Getz has just done the fastest AM lap of the race last time around and pulled back a few tenths. Never mind the stopwatch, this is a visual gap. So the first car going down into turn 6 with the purple and the bright yellow on it is Mark Kwame. Then the GT Silver and Blue 57 is John Getz. The blue and white car, which I always think is very elegant, is Scott Noble. And then behind that, not in this fight, this is a Pro-Am car of Chris Palomo. So, but he is MDK Motorsports, which the boss is the car at the front of this train. So he gets involved here, he could potentially cause a little bit of havoc in the GT, in the AM category in this Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup North America.
I can't see Chris doing that, though. He's a very fair driver. He's got ties to Flying Lizard Motorsports, running with them in Porsches and other iterations of championships. And he's kind of sitting back at this point and watching the battle unfold ahead of him. And I don't blame him. This is a wonderful opportunity to grab a bucket of popcorn and kind of enjoy some good Porsche battling. John Getz just a little bit further back from Kwame after that lap. Didn't get as good of a lap time, but Kwame also not able to run off and hide.
John is very good through the first sector of the track. This is where he's been good, but Mark seems to have got a bit of an advantage here. Let's see what they're like when we get into the inner loop, the bus stop, added a few years ago because the top speed's going into what is now the outer loop at turn 5. Well, actually, it was always turn 5. The bus stop doesn't have, the inner loop doesn't have turn numbers here. But the top speeds were getting a bit high. I think track management worried they might launch people over the top there if you made a mistake under braking. Understood. And so that was put in. It is actually, it has made another passing opportunity, both into it, through it and out of it, because if you can force a little mistake onto one of your competitors, there's all kinds of options. John Getz, good weekend for John. For the most part, did have a little drop in one of the earlier sessions.
Qualifying.
Yes, qualifying, yeah. And lost his fastest 2 laps, so he'll be another driver whose starting position today was set on his best race lap yesterday.
John Getz hasn't finished every race this season, but every race that he's finished, he's been on the podium.
Yeah.
A bit like the Dos Equis man.
He thoroughly enjoys his racing. The AM category for the more senior in years, the more life experienced drivers, shall we say. The cars are all identical. You can ask for permission to move up. So if you're an AM driver and you want to compete with the Pro-Ams, who are a little bit younger drivers, maybe drivers with a bit more experience, or your Pro-Am that wants to be in with the pros, who tend to be career-minded drivers, not exclusively that, then you can appeal to the organisers, and they will generally say, hey, you want to go and be in that class, by all means. What you can't do is be a young pro and run in the AM or the Pro-Am categories.
Yeah,
that's called pot hunting, and we don't allow that here.
That's not very fair. No, and we should also mention this is multi-class racing, but all the cars are exactly the same. The only difference is basically what setup the crew can do to it.
Yes.
So team by team, they can make changes to the cars. You can change the rear wing angle, you take wing out, add wing in, change the shocks, do very little subtle things like that. But the only difference, the drivers.
A lot of dirt being thrown on the track at the exit of turn 6. Mark Kwame there came through a sort of mid-brown sienna fog as he came out of it. Looked like an old London pea super there, back from the 40s, 50s and 60s.
Or a sandstorm on Tatooine.
This is the way. Will Martin still leads by 2 seconds now. Riley Dickinson has consolidated his second position. He's the next car back, the white and green Kelly Moss racing car. And he's got about the same gap as he crests the rise over turn 4 to Jason Hart in the MDK Motorsports car, brightly coloured. Then it's about 2 seconds again, back to Tom Sargent, who's just put his fastest lap of the race in. So he's actually just trimmed 4/10 of a second from Jason. Sargent in the white and blue number 17 car. McElrea Racing, new to this championship, but very experienced chair in Porsche racing, although literally on the other side of the world.
Yeah, and that's part of the experience, coming over to Porsche Carrera Cup North America and getting to compete on the North American circuits. Very different from what you find down under. And Tom Sargent leaning into this fully to be in this championship, moved to North Carolina. McElrea Racing, their first season in this championship, they've performed well as well.
Dan Clark is the next car back. At least he was across the line in the Nola Sport Reese Nichols car. I think Dan's dropped back a little bit. That wasn't the 64 behind Tom Sargent. That's Alex Sedgwick who's come through. This is the man originally from Southam, just outside of Royal Leamington Spa in the centre of England. Misses most of his time over here in the States now. Hasn't done a full season of racing for quite a while. Really interesting project that he's got going in the number 98 car with JDX and PT Autosport, and trying to give individuals who perhaps don't always have the opportunities in motorsport, a fighting chance to get a start as a career, as a driver, an engineer, or in other parts of the motorsport world. Give them a chance to get a foothold. Find out more details about that on their website at PT Autosport. Nice bit of social and social responsibility there, as we see across the IMSA paddocks, to be honest. There's a lot of great work going on with various charities. And let's not forget that Kelly Moss machine with Racing for Children's for the Children's Hospital.
The handprints adorning the hood of the cars that have done so well in this championship over the last, 6 years that they've been wearing that livery. Representing very well. As there's been a change for the lead in Pro-Am, Mr. Jeff Mosing has gone to the front and is now a quarter of a second ahead of Efren Castro. But fear not, that gap will dwindle. These two guys who love playing with one another out on the racetrack. Alan Metney, meanwhile, a further 11 seconds behind the leading duo.
And in Mark Kwame has stretched his lead to a massive 1 second over John Getz. He's still hanging on there. 152.890, 152.817 between those two last time around. Now, this is getting interesting again at the sharper end of the field.
I'm captivated by the best lap times that we've seen. Now, they don't count for anything going forward. It's not as if you can earn a pole position, but Will Martin, the man out front, is the fastest car on the racetrack and has been. Jason Hart in third is the second fastest. Third quick, Tom Sargent, by 1/1000th of a second ahead of Riley Dickinson. When was the last time Riley wasn't in the top 3 for fastest cars?
Fair point, well made by Shea Adam, who's alongside me, John Hindhoff. And this is the IMSA Global Broadcast booth overlooking the start-finish here at Watkins Glen with 17.5 minutes to go. So into the second half now with Will Martin just holding on to that lead.
While we're talking about charities on cars, I've just been reminded the Racing to End Alzheimer's that Mark Fame has adorning his car this weekend with all the names on it of people who have suffered from Alzheimer's, from charitable donations, from people trying to raise awareness of it and trying to find an end to this terrible disease. And someone we love very dearly in the paddock has this on the car as well. Diane Swintoll's mom is on that car. So see, we don't have to look very far to find more worthy charities.
It does your heart good to look through all of the IMSA championships, whether it's here at Porsche or in the other manufacturers, and indeed the headline championships, the Michelin Pilot Challenge and the IMSA WeatherTech Championship. People using the publicity, the visibility that they get. Look no further than someone like Heart of Racing, who've raised over $12 million for the Seattle Children's Cardiac Unit down through the years. Yes, they're a racing concern. Yes, they're a business. But my goodness, there's so many people in this paddock who are trying to give back in one way or another. We salute them all for it. Right, Mark Kwame now, having cleared off to a whole 1 second. That's been halved, I reckon. Probably even less than that. The GT Silver and Blue and Purple car is John Getz. But John, remember, is effectively 10 seconds plus that gap behind him, and that's going to push him out. I think that might push him out of the top 3.
I think you're right on that. As long as they keep battling. Well, as long as they keep battling and taking time off, allowing 4th and 5th to close in, as it is right now, they should be okay. John Getz should still finish in 3rd.
Yes, because James McCann is just over 15 seconds behind John Getz. So at the moment, he's all right. Or at least he's all right for a podium position. I tell you what, he's going to be really annoyed with himself if he does manage to pass Mark, cross the line, and then realise he's not going to take the victory.
Or is 9.9 seconds ahead of him.
Yeah, it's not. That isn't going to happen.
I don't often look at cameras, but when I do, and the headlights start to stand out a little bit more, it makes me nervous, and the headlights are standing out a little bit more.
It's getting a bit darker.
The sky is getting darker.
Scott Noble's just put the best arm lap in, 1:52.3.
We have 15 minutes remaining in this race.
All right, let's see who's got the performance left. There is an element of endurance driving here. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? You see, right now, Hindhoff, what are you talking about? Well, you start with enough fuel to do 40 minutes, probably a little bit more. and obviously that burns off. You have one set of Michelin slick tyres. You push too hard or you try, and that's what Mark Varmy's just done down at turn 6, by the way. He did push too hard and the front did not turn in, and he's now lost that gap. Meantime, another incident to be looked at.
That would be between cars 74 and 77. Travis Wiley in the 77, Jimmy Libre in the 74.
12th and 13th, those two at the moment.
May I present to the court some evidence potentially impacting our AMP battle? You must start one race on qualifying tires.
Yeah.
Perhaps Mark Varmy started today's race on the tires with which he qualified and had set a time and then ultimately had all the times disallowed. Perhaps Scott Noble and John Getz started on new Michelin rubber, and that's what's giving them a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, side-by-side action behind it. That was very tight indeed. Here comes the car that wasn't in that AMP battle, and that, of course, was Chris Palomo, as John and Scott got side-by-side.
Scott got on the grass too.
Oh, Scott was well on the grass. Mark Kawami says, thanks very much, guys. I'll clear off. And from having about a third of a second, he's now stretched to, oh, hang on a second, 2.1 seconds.
I'm hearing from race control, rain 15 minutes out. 13 minutes left in this race. Could be a wet podium.
Well, it'll be a wet podium because there'll be champagne being sprayed on all of them.
Yeah, that's fair.
And this is their last race.
All right.
So out of turn number 9, oh, Scott was squeezed just a little bit by John there. And Chris Palomo almost did the twofer. And overtake another one free, but not quite, right?
Well, Scott Noble clearly watched the Idemitsu Mazda MX-5 Cup Championship earlier on and realized that there is traction to be had in that grass.
The grass. Drop back just a little bit now. Maybe got dirt on his Michelin tyres, and he'd cleaned that up after a couple of... He's dropped well back, actually. John Getz has got the bit between his teeth, though. He's pushing back on again.
He's driving so well this weekend.
Oh, it's the best. I think it might be the best I've seen, John. I mean, that sounds silly for John when he ended up in the wall during qualifying. But his racing this weekend's been good. He's had good pace in the car. At the front of the field, same can be said for Will Martin, the JDX racing car, the black and gold machine. Jeremy Dale, Harrison Bricks. Oh, big shot. And that's Palomo. That is Palomo, and he shattered the radiators at the front. This will be a full course yellow. Reset everything. Coming out of turn number 8. The AMR safety team already on the scene. That's a car that has lost it coming out. Oh, it's raining. It's raining at turn 8.
That's what I was going to say.
It all came from yesterday. This is going to be chaos. Spin for, also for the 63 car, Michael Merritt, the white machine, and with safety vehicles on track, it will be double yellows leading up to there. Michael's still got the flat 6 running. Well, that actually, Chris Palomo might have done everybody else a real solid here, because in bringing out, it's awful for him, and good news is he's out the car. I saw the sheen on the pavement there, and I thought it was from the coolant from the radiators at the front, but it's raining at turn 8. That's where it does come in from that southern and western side. So he's in behind John Getz. I reckon he's going to just go over the curb. He tries to pinch it. He tried to not go over the curb, pinched it, and I'm afraid his momentum and gravity took over. He tries to get to the right-hand side of John Getz and just loses the car. The curbs get slippy quickly, even when they're not damp. And I think he just spun it up. And then Michael Merritt coming on the scene, spinning with double yellows and with full course yellows. That might get them a slap on the wrist. Just looking
left
rear
wheel.
He was just on the curb for Chris Palomo. The tyres doing exactly what they needed to do in front of the safety barriers. And number 10 of Scott Andrews picking up a bit of debris. Scott Noble, excuse me. Good news is that Chris is out of the car. He's fine. He'll get in another Porsche. the Porsche that none of the Porsche drivers want to see is the beautifully equipped, very comfy and fully air-conditioned AMR Rapid Response Cayenne. But at least it will get him back to the pits. His car will follow on in a moment.
By the assistance of the Peterbilt flatbed.
Yeah.
Another P.
Another P.
Yeah.
This is going to take a bit of clearing up here, but we've seen how quickly track services and the AMR safety crews can work together. It's right in between two marshals posts. I don't think it's raining on the start-finish line, Shea.
That's what I'm just looking out the window to examine. No, there's no rain falling from the sky at this part of the track, but right over there, not that far, there is rain falling.
Over there.
And race control, that was what I was going to let you know. I got a text message from race control saying, rain at turn 8, and then we see the impact of Chris Palomo. And then, of course, it all kicks off.
As I say, neutralising the race here, Chris Palomo unwittingly costing himself a bit of money there, but also probably saving more carnage in this field with 8.5 minutes to go in the second race of the weekend and the 8th of the season for Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup North America. Shea Adam and John Hindhaugh on duty.
From here, we go to Road America. Then we go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Woo-hoo.
Then WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for
Rennsport 7.
And rounding out the season at Circuit of the Americas with the Formula One weekend once again.
2 races at each of those events. Road America, by the way, is with the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
Yeah.
Brand new pavement there as well.
That's what I was just going to say. We've had the Indy cars out on a different spec of tire. We're going to have NASCAR out there in a different spec of tire. This is going to be our first preview of what Michelin looks like on the track.
Before the WeatherTech Series and the rest of Hinkley gets there later in the year.
1 week later.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to have our Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup North America runners out on Road America because they're going to give us a preview for what we're going to get for the rest of the IMSA weekend.
That's a good point. I hadn't realised it was just the weekend before. Mm-hmm. Right. So clean-up continues. Clock runs in behind the carmine red Porsche safety car. And I can actually hear rain falling on our effects mics now. So that tells me there is rain falling around
That's
the
just
circuit.
me doing Morse code on my microphone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Send Peter immediately.
Always.
So, at the front of the field, Will Martin leads. His comfortable lead is gone to Riley Dickinson. Question, will we restart? Second question, will Riley manage to get back through?
That's a very good point. Will we restart? Because that affects John Getz, who had a very big gap and a good handle
You read my mind.
on the podium. Sorry about that.
No.
I'll stop reading it now.
Jason Hart in third. Tom Sargent unlucky just off the podium in fourth. Alex Sedgwick fifth. Dan Clark sixth. Michael McCarthy seventh. Sean Varwick eighth. Varun Chosky ninth. Michael Cooper 10th. That's 2 JDXs in the top 10. 3 Kelly Moss racing cars. In Pro-Am, Jeff Mosing and Efren Castro are well into the top half of the field for Pro-Am first and second. And Mark Varmy, John Getz, Scott Noble. Now James McCann now, of course, right with them. And Grady Willingham is only, well, when Christian Cole and he catch up, he'll be right there as well. I think we'll find that John Getz, with the 10 seconds, is going to drop way out of contention in the AM. Who with the other cars as well?
They were
Jimmy Libre
and
in MDK Motorsport 74. He was in 13th position.
What was the other name that I said? Not Travis Wiley. That was an incident on track between the two drivers. John Getz.
Was it Ryan Yardley, 78? 78, 74?
Could be, yes.
I'm
very curious, though, because the debris field has to be quite large, given how many cars were weaving back and forth on the front straight behind the safety car, clearly trying to clear off their tires. You don't get heat in your tires very effectively by weaving back and forth. You do that through aggressive braking, and not seeing very much aggressive braking, as it looks like there is a significant amount of rain
it's pouring
at the back end of the track. Before you get into the bus stop, it's dry over here. Rain gods, if you would please hold off and letting it come down completely until I get back into the pit lane for the next session. I would really appreciate that. But you know, John, over the course of this week, I've had conversations with many of our drivers. Two of them, Alan Metney and Jeff Mosing, freely admitted to doing the rain dance because they wanted this.
It was Goldcrest's Philippe Mathian.
Yes.
Who was the third driver.
He's retired a long time ago.
Yeah. So that car won't need its 10 seconds.
Well remembered.
No, I had to look back on the race control screen. We have all of that information. Thank you to our timing partners at Alcamel here at IMSA. And also working with them at Le Mans a couple of weeks ago and in the WEC, of course. Thanks to the full team for giving us all of that information. This is going to end under safety car, I think.
2 to go.
It'll come down to what the barrier situation is, I think.
It was in the tires. That makes me more optimistic because there wouldn't necessarily need to be a barrier repair. The safety car lights are still on, though.
Have to go out shortly, and I'm not sure we've cleared the... I'm not sure that we've cleared enough of the work on that stretch from turn 8 up to turn 9. I mean, you can get them out of the way if you pulled them straight up there and turned right into the cut through on the short course.
If we do finish this way, though, this is only Tom Sargent's second non-podium finish.
Yeah, I know.
It is a remarkable year the young Australian is putting together, and it would be
5 seconds and a third.
5 seconds, third from yesterday, and a not good finish from the second race in Miami. But other than that,
right.
This would be one of those seasons that you look at and go, ha, he's in it for the championship. But then there's Riley Dickinson with 5 wins and a third and a second.
They have got the air dryer on the exit curb at turn 8. Presumably there was no debris over there.
Safety car lights are still on.
Safety car lights are still on the 992 turbo.
I think this is going to be white flag under yellow.
So you can start doing a bit of arithmetic. Some very damp patches at the exit of turn 4 heading down towards the inner loop. So with no time to red flag and restart this very busy Super Saturday here. Track action starting at 8 o'clock this morning and running through till almost 6 o'clock tonight. And Tony has got the white flag out in bright sunshine. She doesn't have a coat on. How bizarre has this spot shower been? A couple of places on the track. So the race will end behind the Porsche 992 Turbo.
I'm putting my raincoat on. Not taking any chances.
Well, neither should you. So it looks like Will Martin is going to take a debut victory, a maiden victory, excuse me.
Second, I believe. Was he not victorious at Long Beach in the second race?
Yes, he was. You're absolutely right. I had forgotten all about that.
He sits third in the championship after yesterday's DNF. He had a really good opportunity to jump ahead of Tom Sargent, but he didn't quite get it done. So this will keep him third in the championship, but he's closing in on Tom Sargent for that second place. Riley Dickinson with another second place finish.
He'll take that all day.
Oh my goodness, what a weekend.
I mean, what sort of points gap is it between him and Will when we came into the weekend?
When we came into the weekend, it was nearly 60.
Yeah.
No, 67, nearly 70.
The gap between first and second in points is the biggest gap. It is the FIA style of championship points, so 25, 18, 16, da-da-da-da-da-da. So 7 points. All Riley's got to keep doing is finishing second to people who are behind him, which is everybody.
Different people.
And that is the key, Shea.
Yep.
You have absolutely taken a nail and bashed it with a 10-pound sledgehammer.
Douche.
Absolute one hit, and it's gone straight into the wood there because it is so competitive that it is not the same person that is ahead of Riley all the time. And as we said, using that sporting analogy, if you're talking about a league system, then you're not going to get overhauled unless somebody puts a huge winning streak together. 5 out of the first 6 races went to Riley Dickinson. Until somebody does that in this, now as we move to the second half of the season, he's just got to keep being on the podium.
Well, and now we're 5 out of 8 wins, 2 second-place finishes, and 1 third.
Yeah.
Someone else needs to put that together in the second half of the season, or across the entirety of the season. We need somebody else to come along and win 5 races. We've got Will Martin, who's won 2, but he's also had DNFs.
Yeah. And they've also got to hope that Riley doesn't just keep picking up the points.
Exactly.
And Victoria Thomas, who's at the head of Kelly Moss, knows how to put together championship wins. They are the most successful team in Porsche racing, and IMSA Porsche racing in particular. They've branched out into the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship this year. They've probably forgotten more about racing Porsches than most people will ever know. And they are going to be telling Riley what I'm sure he already knows is, you don't have to do the silly passes. You don't have to do the big risk for little reward. If you're sitting in 4th or 5th position, you'll take those points not to get a DNF.
Well, and look at what they've done in the history of the Deluxe Porsche Carrera Cup North America. The first season of it, they won the championship with Seb Priaulx, finished 2nd with Kai van Berlo. Last year, they finished 2nd in the championship with Kai van Berlo. That's fairly good consistency at the top of the top echelon.
Yeah. And they know how to win championships, as I say.
Yep.
Congratulations, and a wee golf clap then to Will Martin, who gets the 2nd W of the season for him and for his JDX racing car. The number 9, resplendent in a very distinctive black and gold livery. We all know what that is reminiscent of, going back through the years and the rent-a-racer cars. And it looks absolutely quality on that Porsche.
The JDX livery that Parker Thompson wore last year to win this championship.
Is that the portent?
Yeah.
So across the line in bright sunshine. What a bizarre finish to the race. A shower at turn 8, which caught out Chris Palomo and brought out the yellow flag. May have saved more carnage with the leaders to come round next time around on what was an absolutely sopping wet track. Riley Dickinson holds on to his championship lead in 2nd. Jason Hart will be 3rd. And in the categories, Pro-Am, Jeff Mosing beats Efren Castro into 2nd. And they'll finish in 14th and 15th. Check that, yes, 14th and 15th, because Jimmy Libra is going to get 10 seconds. So that'll drop him down to 16th in class and 18th overall. In Pro-Am, 3rd is Mark Mocciaroni. And in Am, Mark Kwame wins. 2nd across the line was John Getz, but of course he's got 10 seconds as well. So it's Scott Noble, James McCann, Grady Willingham, and John Getz drops down to 5th in class. But no doubt about the winner. Windscreen white McGoing on the damp part of the track, but he doesn't have to race. He can cruise home for the full points tally behind the Porsche turbo safety car. Wonder if this just gets his championship challenge underway. Shea Adam was alongside me in the IMSA Global Broadcast Centre. Thank you for your company. And we'll be back for the rest of the season, live and free. Next up, we head to Road America, 4 miles around. It's a great circuit for these Porsches. My very great thanks to our production team, both on site here at Watkins Glen and up in Charlotte. Porsche racing ending under yellow today, and Riley Dickinson continues to lead in 2023.